Welcome to this week's episode of the Broken Hearts Club with Michelle, and I'm your host, Michelle Garbutt. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to listen to today's episode, and I'm sure that you'll have some takeaways that will help you get through the holiday season, or really any event where you're going to be interacting with people from your family, friends, and you might incur conversations that you don't want to have, or interact with people that you may only see every now and again, or that make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. So I'm going to give you some tips that will help you get through this holiday period. Christmas is like a week away. And whilst this is a very exciting time of the year, there's also a lot of stress that comes with the pressure, the expectations, the parties. There might be work stress as people are trying to wrap up the end of the year, school holidays if you have children. There is so much going on. Firstly, this is a period to give yourself some space, some grace, some extra self-love and compassion. You don't have to have everything perfect. And what is perfect anyway? As long as you are engaging in this holiday season in a way that works for you and means that you are showing up in a way that supports your needs in this moment, then that is the best that you can do. If you've recently broken up from your relationship, this period in time can be really hard for you because people are asking you questions. They want to know what happened. They want to know how you are. And sometimes it's just to make conversation. Sometimes it's a genuine care. Sometimes they just want to know the nitty-gritty. So it's very important for you to have a couple of tools at your hand to help you get through those conversations that you don't want to have. Now, before you go into these spaces, I always think it's a good idea to have clear boundaries on who you're going to share certain information with, what conversations you're going to be opening yourself up to, what information you're willing to share, how you want to be treated and feel in this circumstance. So being very clear on your boundaries means that you would know when you walk into the party, the house, whatever the situation is, how your expectations are of how you want to be treated, how you want the event to go in terms of how you want people to interact with you or how you want to open up in this space, what you're able to discuss, what you're willing to discuss. If this is still very raw for you, you don't want to be breaking down in the middle of the Christmas party or Christmas lunch or the events that you're having. So having clear boundaries on what you're actually able to discuss at this point in time and also what you're willing to share. There are certain people that don't need to know. Really, all they probably want is just I'm fine, it's all good. Because they're worried about your well-being, but they don't need to know all the nitty-gritties. That family member that you see once or twice a year, you can just tell them that everything is fine. Now, this is where the tips come in. How do you deflect that conversation? How do you navigate that conversation? I find for myself, especially this is something that I've learned when people speak to me about my business. They just are showing a genuine interest, but they probably don't want all the nitty-gritty. So I'm always, things are going well, thanks for asking. Ask a question back to them. Or ask them if they've tried such and such, if there's a dip out, if there's food that's available to say, have you tried that? Or even if you know that someone in the family is a whiz and always brings a pavlova, or they do the trifle, or they bring the dessert. You can always ask that question. Hey, did Auntie Mavis bring the trifle this year? I can't wait to have it. What about you? What are you looking forward to? Changing the conversation. It's not rude. You're not doing it in a rude way. We don't have to implement and stand by our boundaries in a hard way. We don't need to be rude with them. We don't need to be disrespectful to anybody, but we can guide the conversations away from the things that we don't want to talk about and just push them onto another topic. The other thing that you can do is if you see someone that you want to go talk to, you can go, oh, just excuse me, I need to go and chat with Auntie Flo. Haven't spoken to her in a long time. So there's all these little things that you can do to move yourself out of a conversation, deflect, and move away from the situation that may start to cause you to become upset, that may trigger you, that may be putting you in a situation that you don't feel comfortable in, and that may make you feel upset, defensive, etc. Having those little tidbits in your pocket to pull out when you need to is a really nice way to know as well that, okay, I've got the tools at hand to handle these conversations that I don't really want to be in. Now, of course, there's some people in your family who you can open up to and talk to on a deeper level about what's happening. They might be able to provide you with guidance. They may have been there themselves. And if you start to have a conversation with them, you can always say, look, I really don't want to speak a bit about this now in a group setting. Maybe we can catch up for a coffee and have a chat about that because I'd really like your advice. So there's ways that you can direct and guide that conversation to allow yourself to stay comfortable in these situations. The other thing I'm going to say to you is this is such a busy, busy time. Give yourself extra space if you need it. Give yourself extra love. Show yourself more compassion. If you need to on Christmas Day, take some time for yourself because it's chaotic and starting to become overwhelming. You can remove yourself. You can just take a break for a moment and come back. Give yourself that space that you need because you need to nurture yourself and give yourself what you need in these moments. You don't want to feel that you're under pressure to be somewhere. You set the boundaries. You show up for the things that you want to show up for. If you need to leave because things have gotten a certain way. Now, this is also useful when dealing with toxic family relationships. Being clear on what you want to be or how you want to be treated during these moments. And, you can say, if you're going to continue this conversation, if you're going to continue talking in this manner, I'm going to move away. You're entitled to do that. You're entitled to nicely say, if you're going to continue this, I really don't want to talk about this right now. If people still keep pushing you, I really don't want to talk about this right now. You can be quite clear on that. And there's nothing wrong with that. Give yourself permission to leave a conversation, leave a space, or leave altogether if you need to. And that's just a protection mechanism for yourself. And in these moments when you're raw and it's vulnerable, you're allowed to do these things for yourself. Now, if there are children involved and you have to interact with your ex, make sure that you have clear expectations of how the day is going to go. If you're doing a split day, if you do a one-off, one-on, if they're doing maybe a Christmas Eve and you're doing a Christmas Day, make sure it's very clear what the expectations are. Pick up, drop off time, if they're eating a meal at some place, or just, how you want that to go. Today's not the day for us to be talking about, anything that involves the children in a deeper level. This is just about the day. If something's happening on the day that I need to know, yes. But otherwise, this needs to be a really clear-cut, having the expectations of how you want that drop off, pick up to go, and having that conversation with your partner. May not be easy if your partner has been toxic, has been abusive, if it was an unhealthy relationship. But you can still set your expectations for how you would like any interactions on that day to go. If you don't have children and you have decided to go no contact with your ex, keep those boundaries in place. Christmas Day and around this holiday season is a time when people can possibly feel lonely. So they'll reach out to exes and see who's listening. See who I can get a response from. How can I make myself feel better? Don't feed those types of conversations. Stick with your no contact. Stick with the boundaries that you have in place with your ex. This is a way of protecting yourself to ensure that you're not triggered on the day, to ensure that you're not upset on the day. You want this holiday season, it's for you to celebrate as well and to enjoy time with your family and not to have hard conversations that you don't want to have, not to be upset, not to be triggered, because you may already be feeling a little bit upset already or lonely. And so you don't want to be pushing yourself into circumstances that are going to make you feel worse and trigger you. Now, I'm not telling you to push down your emotions. I'm all about expressing yourself. But knowing how to regulate yourself if you are being triggered during the day, understanding what you need is also a powerful tool. So understanding that if someone has started to upset you and to trigger you, or you can feel yourself starting to get anxious, starting to get sad, that's okay. Allow yourself to feel that, but also know how to bring yourself back to a place of, if we're going to be using scientific terms, homeostasis. Allow yourself to come back to that place of balance. So knowing how to bring yourself back is a really powerful tool. Do you need to just, kind of close your eyes and count to 10? To just take a couple of deep breaths. Allow that emotion to move through you, not pushing it down, not allowing it to explode out of you as well, but allowing yourself to feel it, because you can always come back to it later and say that I didn't appreciate that. You didn't want to have that discussion on the day, but what you did upset me. You can also have those conversations afterwards. But just knowing what your boundaries are on the day. Look, I have left Christmas Day. Because I didn't like the way that it was going. It was late in the day. Topics were being discussed that are triggering for me, that get me riled up, that get me a bit emotional. They really upset me. It's something that really rubs me the wrong way. And there was just this constant theme that was running from somebody within the family. And I excused myself and I left. I had to do that for myself because I knew that I would explode, and that's not how I want Christmas Day to be. So it's okay to do that. It's okay. I left because I didn't want to deal with that anymore. When there is alcohol flowing and, people stop losing their filter, sometimes things come up in conversation that you don't want to address. So you are more than entitled to leave because you don't want to have to endure that. There's nothing wrong with that. And it didn't cause any, people understood why I left. I apologized to the host. There was no drama. It's totally okay to leave a situation that is, is causing you to become triggered. I'm not perfect. I still work on myself. There are things that I will not tolerate, and that was a boundary for me. So I stood by my boundaries and I left because I know what triggers me. And that's the same for you. Understand what triggers you, and understanding what your boundaries are super important to keeping your inner peace in an extremely stressful time of the year. So your tools, your tips for getting through this holiday season, just to wrap it all up nicely. clear boundaries for yourself. What are you willing to tolerate? What are your expectations on how you're going to be treated? Know that you can deflect a conversation, that you can defer a conversation, that you can guide a conversation away from a topic that you don't want to talk about. Allow yourself, give yourself permission to leave a conversation that is not working for you, a space that is not working for you, or a venue that is not working for you. You are more than entitled to do that. Understanding what you're willing to share with who, knowing who you can trust with these conversations, extremely important. Giving yourself space when you need it, showing yourself compassion, extra self-care and extra self-love if you need it during these holiday periods. Stick to any rules that you have in place with your ex-partners, whatever they are around. Children, just if it's the two of you, no contact, whatever boundaries you have in place, be strong with them during this period. Now, allow yourself to feel the emotions that you feel. Know that just because it's supposed to be a joyous and amazing holiday, doesn't mean that you have to be faking that the whole way through. You're still allowed to feel sad during this period because it's raw and emotional for you. You're feeling alone. That's okay. It's totally okay. Because getting through the first of a lot of things can be hard when you've broken up with someone, even if they were an ass. It can be hard because it's the first and it may feel a little bit lonely. Allow yourself to feel that. Just don't get bogged down in it. Don't get too stuck in it, but allow yourself and acknowledge that you feel lonely in that moment, or you feel sad, or you feel upset. It's totally okay. You don't have to keep your happy face on the whole way through the holiday festive season. So they're my tips for you. I hope there's something there that you can use to help you through the holiday season, or basically any family event or any function where you're faced with things that you don't want to have to deal with. I want to thank you so much for listening to my podcast and taking the time to listen to my advice, to my words, for your support. Even though this is a relatively new podcast, I am honored that you've taken the time and chosen to listen. Please share with anyone that you think may have some takeaways from this. Don't forget to like, to subscribe, to follow. And there will be another podcast before the end of the year. So I look forward to connecting with you then. Ciao, and it will be after Christmas, so happy holidays. Ciao.